Alright, so today we're going to talk about topic 3D, which is going to be absolute value equations. Okay, so absolute value equations. We've talked about earlier this year absolute value and what does absolute value mean. So absolute value means the distance away you are from zero. Okay, so to refresh this a little bit here, I have down here some examples. The absolute value of negative 8. So if you think about this on a number line here, that's what you're looking about. That's what you're going to think about here. That's a bad arrow. Okay. You think about where's negative 8 out on, so you have your 0 and negative 8 is over here to the left. How far away is that from 0? Well, if you were counting, you'd be like, well, it's negative 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, negative, so it's 8 away to get back to 0. So negative 8, the distance negative 8 is from 0 is 8, a positive 8. Okay? So then you would go, now I have another one here. Absolute value of just a positive 8. So think about it on a number line again. Okay, you're at 0. And it says to 8. Okay, how far away is that? Well, remember distance here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, boom. So the distance over is 8. Okay, one other way you can think about distance or absolute values. Absolute value would be like driving your car. When you go in reverse, if you look at the speedometer, okay, the speedometer is always getting bigger. Okay, it's not a negative number. It's always getting positive. It's always positive. It's always getting bigger. Okay, so distance, absolute value, you can think about distance, think about driving your car, reverse, forward, and all that stuff. It still makes it's still the positive value of it. All right. Okay, but today we're going to talk about absolute value equations. So we're going to be solving these here. So here's our first one here. It looks very simple here. Absolute value of x equals 6. Okay, so we're trying to figure out what does the absolute value have to be in order to equal 6. What does the inside have to be 6? So the way I like to think about this is I like to think about blob. Whatever is on the inside here, of the absolute value, I'm going to cover it up with a blob, okay? Or you can put your hand over it or your finger, okay? However you want to do it, okay? So we're thinking the absolute value of blob equals 6. So what numbers are 6 away from 0? Have a distance of 6 from 0, okay? And when we do that, we're going to be like, okay, well, 6 is 6 away from 0, so we can equal just 6. But also, negative 6, okay, is also one that absolute value the absolute value of negative 6 is 6 because negative 6 is 6 away from 0. So for this problem here, we're going to have two answers because the absolute value is talking about distance from 0 and negative 6 and 6 are both 6 away from 0. So you would break this up into two, make one equal to negative 6 and one equal to a positive 6. Okay, and now we just have to look at the inside. So the inside, I'm going to uncover that. I'm going to take my blob away, is x. So I'm going to put each of these equal to x. So we have x equals negative 6 and x equals 6. So we have two answers here. If you put a negative 6 back in here, so if you look at x, or absolute value of negative 6, you should be like, oh, that's positive 6. Put in a positive 6. Absolute value of a positive 6, oh, that's a positive 6. These both work. So we have two answers. X can either be negative 6 or a positive 6. So we got two answers here. Okay, so absolute value is we're going to have two answers usually on a lot of these. All right, so let's look at another one here. We got absolute value of negative 2x equals 10. So let's try solving this one here now. Okay, absolute value of negative 2x equals 10. Well, we first need to think about this. Let's cover up the inside of the absolute value. So we're going to say absolute value of blob equals 10. Okay, absolute value of blob equals 10. So what are the two numbers that, if you take the absolute value of them, equal 10? Well, you should be like, Mr. Graver. That's pretty easy here. Absolute value of 10, okay, I'm going to think about this. Absolute value of 10 is 10. So I'm going to make 1 equal to a positive 10. You should be like, well, negative 10 is also 10 away from 0 because the absolute value of negative 10 is 10. So we're going to make the other one equal to negative 10. So doing this one here now, I'm going to move my blob away. Since I know that it can equal either a negative 10 on the inside or a positive 10. So I'm going to take everything on the inside, and I'm going to set them equal to both of these now. So we have negative 2x equals a negative 10, and we have a negative 2x equals a positive 10. Well, now you just solve each of these equations. So you'd be like, oh, Mr. Gerber, you divide by negative 2 on both sides. Okay, so you would get x equals a positive 5 for negative 10 divided by negative 2. And on the next one, you'd get divided by negative 2 on both sides, and you would get x equals a positive 5. Okay, so these are the two answers that it could be. Oops, sorry, that's a negative 5. It's supposed to be a negative 5. So these are the two answers that you could have. And if you go back and you check them, they would both get you either a positive 10 or a negative 10 in the absolute value. All right, here, let's look at this one now. Okay, absolute value of a negative 10 or negative 11. Or the absolute value of 5x minus 1 equals negative 11. So let's think about this here. with this one. Cover up the inside again with the blob. Okay, so let's just say the absolute value of blob equals a negative 11. So if you want to think about that, think about this absolute value of a negative. Can we ever get a negative number after the absolute value? Sorry, can we ever get the absolute value to ever be a negative number? So can the distance be negative? Can you have a negative distance? Okay, so think about that. Can you have a negative distance? Well, for this one, you'd be like, no, you can't. It's like when you drive a car, you go backwards and reverse. Even though you're going reverse, it's like in a negative direction, but the distance is still positive. So this one, you'd be like, I can't have a negative ever get out of the absolute value. So on this one, you'd be like, oh, I can't do that. No solution. Okay, that's the answer for this one. No solution. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to cover this one. I'm going to erase this here. Okay, but now I'm going to change this one. So we're going to make this also we're going to change this, or I'm going to write up an example number 5 now. Okay, example number 5. Okay, absolute value of 5x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, absolute 5x minus 1 equals 0. So you would do the same thing. Imagine covering up the inside. So say blob, absolute value of blob equals 0. So the distance has to be 0. So that means it's just going to be equal to 0. So this one's only going to have one answer. So we can have two answers, as we saw at the beginning. The last one, on example 4, we could have no solution because you can't have a negative value be an absolute value. Absolute value can't get a negative. And if it's equal to 0, you're just going to have one solution. Okay, I shouldn't say that. It's going to be equal to 0. Okay, so now I'm going to uncover my blob, and I'm going to write that equal to 0. So then you're going to have 5x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, and then you just solve that equation like you've done in the past. Okay, so if you want to try it, you can, but it should be pretty simple for you to solve it for there. All right, last one here. I want you now to try this one. Okay, type in your answer on the puzzle, and please make sure you come to class with this and ready to go. I'll give you a hint here. Okay, remember, think about absolute value, distance from 0. So what would the distance from 0 be for 22? How far is 22 away? What are the numbers that can possibly get you a distance of 22? Okay, come to class with this ready to go, and please be ready to talk about this one.